All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the end of the LameJam. We have our final event here for this weekend, and I'm super excited for this one. We're going to be talking with some local industry professionals about what they've been working on in the local game industry. I'm going to bring them on right now, and we can get right into it. And so, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. And so, just a quick overview. Connor and I were on the LameJam side, and so we helped set up the weekend and stuff like that. And we're super lucky to have Mike from BreakFall, and then Nick and Mathieu, or Matt from SkyPyre Studios. And so we'll get right into it. We'll start with some introductions. And so, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, the studio you work at, and the products that you work on?
Sure. Yeah. So, I'm Mike. I'm co-founder of BreakFall. Currently, I'm working full-time at Snowed In Studios in Ottawa. So that's covering a good span from kind of super indie kind of hobby project stuff to right now I work on a AAA game that I can't name. Very exciting, but NDA ninjas would drop down from the ceiling and dispatch me if I mentioned what it was. But Snowed In recently announced that we were working on Forza Horizon 5, for instance. So we're working on some pretty cool stuff over there. So it's a lot of engineering outsourcing work that we do that we're expanding into a lot more art, design, things like that. My background originally, I went to school for music. I worked at the now defunct Artec Studios for 8 years as basically the sound department there. That was kind of my dream job at the time, but I've cycled through design, writing, a lot of audio, now producer, project manager is my current role. So that's kind of where I'm at in a nutshell.
Awesome. And then we'll start with you, Nick. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at SkyPyre?
Yeah, for sure. I'm the studio director as well as just a general purpose designer as well. So I work primarily as a level designer, but I have a bunch of other sort of side skills that work their way in, things like videography, graphic design, getting into modeling, getting into programming, dabbling, fingers in many things. SkyPyre Studios is a indie development company here in Ottawa. It's small, largely remote. I'm sure we all are. And like Mike said, we're working mainly on sort of smaller indie projects, type of things like that. I've worked on our flagship title, Halen Ballad of the Blade Thief, which is a single-player action game, as well as The Blobs Fight, which is a local multiplayer party game. And I'm currently working on Evasive Maneuvers, an online ship battle game. I went to school at Carleton University for interactive multimedia design, and that's actually where SkyPyre was sort of formed. Like that definitely got me sort of into the industry, but I sort of had my fingers in the development pie, as it were, from a really young age, because my dad was a modder for Unreal Tournament, and so he got me using the old Unreal Engine, and then I eventually kept up with that and then went to school for that, and then the student surpassed the teacher. But yeah, so that's mostly me.
Awesome. And Matt, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so there won't be much to say, as Nick covered most of it for SkyPyre. It's largely the same thing. We were two of the co-founders there. But as for me, I started, at SkyPyre, I'm the marketing manager. I do all the social media posts and the YouTube scheduling and that kind of stuff. So that's largely my role at SkyPyre, but I also do general graphic design and video editing and that sort of stuff as well. And then also for UI work is I'm very involved in that too for all of our games. I started, like Nick said as well, at Carleton, the same program, IMD. However, I did not start as early into games as he did. The only time I'd ever started dabbling in games was at Carleton, and that's when I started amassing the skills through school to make the connections to make a game. I never really thought about how games are made; they just are. The magic. Was just a thing that just happened. But no, I started more in late elementary school, early high school of video editing, and I self-taught in that. And then I started discovering Photoshop, and I went to the design route, which ended up leading me to the same spot, but very different way to get there.
Great. Sounds good. Connor's doing a little bit of a technical setup, so I've removed him for a second. But I also want to mention anybody who's watching along on Twitch, on YouTube, or on Discord, feel free to put any questions in the chat that you want to know about the Ottawa industry, about either BreakFall Studios, Snowden, or SkyPyre, and we can pass those on. But to get started, I think I have sort of an interesting question that's related to the LameJam a little bit, and I want to know a little bit about how everybody's first jam went, because I think we've all come from a place where we've participated in game jams before, and we might have a lot of insights from not only participating in jams, but then taking it to professional studios and like having the professional experience as well. And so maybe I'll start with you this time, Matt. Can you tell us a little bit about your first jam?
Sure. If I recall correctly, that would have been in 2016. I believe it was 2016. That sounds about right. And yeah, it was Global Game Jam. And Carleton University is actually one of the big hosts in Ottawa. That I think might be the biggest one. Maybe Shopify has beaten that now. But yeah, we always did that in our labs. So it was very a natural setting because we were there every day. So we, work with our friends and largely a lot of the people from SkyPyre to this day anyway. But that first jam was, 48 hours, make a game. We never done that before. The previous experience in making games for us, and especially me, was school projects, which you had at least a few weeks, if not the entire semester to make. So there's lots of time for ideation, lots of time for iteration, and just, this doesn't work, let's change, whatever. So we kind of fell into the trap of, as we mentioned in earlier on in this LameJam this weekend, keep the scope manageable, keep it small, and we fell into the trap of, we'll get it all done, we'll get all this stuff. And basically we came up with this idea the idea was fairly simple. It was like this kid's imagination every morning in their routine, brush their teeth and whatever, but every morning throughout the week you'd have to traverse, like today is prehistoric day, or the next day was a Western day, and we had planned like at least 10 levels, all vastly different in game mechanics and in art style, which was a foolish thing to do. And we basically came out with lots of art and movement, and that was it. We didn't have an actual game, and it was heart-wrenching, but it was a good wake-up call of, wait a minute, to make a game, it's a lot more involved, especially in a small amount of time. And from then on, we've gotten better in game jams, but it's always been a struggle to keep the scope small.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I definitely agree. It's one of the harshest lessons you can learn very quickly. And people will tell you, keep the scope small, but it's not something that you can learn very easily until you make mistakes yourself. And so I definitely agree with that one. Nick, how about yourself?
Well, that was also my first game jam to Imagination, which was I was gonna have a cold open where you said, "Hey, how did it go?" And I would say very poorly. But I would say here's the thing about that particular project is I didn't quite get the game jam thing. I know it was like all about the short turnaround and all that. But I worked on some art stuff and it got put in there, so I counted it as a success. Really, my sort of first time where there was like stakes to my game jam that then I got served precisely the same lesson was one where it was myself and one other person from SkyPyre, Tyson, trying to make a shooter game because we'd wanted to make one, but we weren't actively working on any at the time through SkyPyre. So we're like, we're going to use a game jam. We're going to figure out a way to shoehorn this in here. That was one where like we even kept the scope small, but it was still too big. Like you look at the window and you count the sticky notes on the window when you're done, and you're like, this was not a game jam game. What the hell were we thinking? But yeah, I mean, I love jams because they give you the chance to learn those lessons where it feels like the stakes are high. Like it felt high for us. We were like, we got to make this work. And then it doesn't, but it's okay because it doesn't hit you very hard. Whereas a product you're trying to sell or if you're a smaller studio and you're trying to make a pitch, that vertical slice is significantly more important. So, yeah.
I think that's definitely some good insights to sort of compare the jam to like actual like separation of products a little bit, because I think when people come into their first jam, they don't really have this idea of how does that compare to a project that you're working on in the industry, or like how you scope it out in your mind. How might that be different from other projects? So I think those are some pretty good insights.
Thanks.
And Mike, for yourself, how was your first jam?
Yeah, I think my first jam, I'm trying to remember, make sure I get it. This is going back to like 2011, like a decade ago. But was also a global game jam at Carleton. Yeah, the BreakFall crew have been trying to make games for a while. We've been working on Marvin's Mittens for quite a while, which is our first game we made, not our first game out. Yeah, we took that engine and we decided we were going to use like plasticine, do like almost like a claymation kind of art style. It went really well. The game was like super shallow. Like it was basically sort of a Where's Waldo hide and seek. Like one player had to hide in this castle, and the other player was the queen trying to catch the king sneaking in from after a night of partying on the town. And but literally the mechanic was like, look away, like don't watch while someone else plays their turn, kind of.
Yeah.
But it was super cute. Like it turned out like actually pretty well. We had like an 8-person team or something. It was like BreakFall and friends go to a game jam. But yeah, I mean the scope of that, the interaction, there's just so little. So we did kind of achieve what we set out to do because we planned to do very little. But the funniest thing that happened there was Marvin's Mittens, this game about a kid running around in a winter wonderland. And we had this, it was so slippery. The controls were like, what is wrong with this game? Like we're using our engine. How are we getting this so wrong? It's because we had accidentally set everything to ice. And that was just where we landed. It was always just very like drifty.
Yeah,
it was a good time. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to jump onto a tangent. Like the most productive game jam we had was a few years later when we made Starwall, which was our like sort of successful game that we then used. We actually managed to release that, improve on it after the jam, released it on Steam, all sorts of consoles, and so big fan of jams. And ultimately, what was funny is we ended up working for a while, having office space in Snowed Inn's building, but next to Steel Crate Games that also started at a game jam. So this is where a lot of Ottawa, like indies, kind of get their start. Game jams are great.
Yeah, and so I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. And so this is just a question from chat. What was the process like going from like a game jam to being able to ship something? And so I think both SkyPyre and BreakFall have a little bit of experience with this. So I'll start, Mike, with you just to continue on from the Starwall discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was interesting. We definitely had, after the game jam, we put Starwall up. This was when Unity just played in a web player nicely, and you could just throw things up online, and people were playing it, and a lot of people were playing it. And that's when we started asking the question of like, is there like something we could improve on here? What could we add? What could we improve to make this worth selling? And so it was a lot more levels. There was a bit of a single player experience. Costumes, just fine tuning and tightening a lot. But it's amazing how even with that, like Starwall, it was a jam game and relatively small scope. The core of that experience was there after that game jam. And even so, it just takes so long to do, especially things like UI, all the publishing stuff, like just getting through the stores, working with like Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft. Like it's a process, and it takes a lot of hours, a lot of effort to actually get through that stuff. So there's definitely a lot of things you don't foresee, and you kind of, we always joke at BreakFall about the second 90%. Like you feel like you're 90% done, and that's usually kind of your halfway of hours you will eventually sink into the project, which can be a bit of a slog, and it was tough to finish. Our largest project, Pizza Titan Ultra, had a similar thing. Even though we felt like we knew the ropes, we knew what we were doing, we knew where we were, it was still really hard to finish that whole thing. Thankfully, there are good people in town who are able to help you with things like doing extra mech art assets. SkyPyre.
Yes.
So yeah.
Very cool. And then either Matt or Nick, do you have any experiences shipping from game jams?
Well, we are currently doing that right now. We're in the middle of it. So Game Jam, Global Game Jam 2021, which was all online for us, we created Evasive Maneuvers, and we created, like Mike said, the core game loop. The bones were there, and then we decided, what, this is kind of cool. I think we can make this into a game. So here we are, nearly a year later. trying to finish up that game. And it's really like, Mike just said it, and we've experienced it numerous times, but it really is like that core game loop was done within this year was a week long because COVID and all that stuff. But even within that week, we had we had most of the game in, and now it was just like refining it to make it an actual final product. And it's been fun, but it's also been like this, let's do it. Come on. Just the little details, little ticks. And and now we're just getting so close, but you're so close, but so far, because as we're refining, we're changing things as well. So that's the main struggle right now, but it's going well, and we're pretty happy with the game. Yeah.
Awesome. And Nick, is there anything you want to add in on that?
I mean, it doesn't explicitly count as making a LameJam game that would go on to be released, but in all functional ways, the Blobs Fight was also a LameJam game in the sense that we made the core game of the blobs and the jiggly physics and the core game mode that was there, I think, in less than a week.
It was 1, maybe 2 weeks, but really, really quick.
I think it was, we talked for a week and then we went, oh my God, CNE is in a week. We need something to bring there. So people got to work and cracked out the base mode of that. But then, you know what? Again, I'll echo it the third time. Like Mike said, the second 90%. I like to say that 10% of the work is 90% of the work, and then the last 10% is 90% of the work. Mm-hmm. This is a weird combination because we finished the core game in a week, and then we spent 2 years finishing and shipping the game to different platforms.
Now, that being said, the core game loop was not nearly as good as the final movement and stuff.
Yes,
but still.
Yeah.
All right. And so I want to talk a little bit, dive in a little bit into the Ottawa community a little bit. And so I'm going to pull Connor back in. I think Connor should be good to go. You're muted right now, but...
All right. Technical issues aside. Cool. All right. I wanted to talk a little bit local industry. If everyone is excited to do that, going a bit beyond the companies here and see what you know about those. So, I guess what do you kind of see as the big aspects? How would you describe where the local industry is at, where people can get involved in this local industry, and kind of getting started in this big space? Because a lot of people don't really see a lot of this industry. It feels kind of tucked away to a lot of people. It seems a bit inaccessible, but how have people been able to get involved? What are some ways that people can get involved with this? I guess we'll lead it out. Let's send it off to Mike to get started. You're at the top of the list here.
Sure. Well, I'll go with the easy early one. Is I personally always recommend checking out Dirty Rectangles. That's I used to attend before the pandemic times, but it's definitely a very cool group of people. Just I've met a lot of interesting Ottawa independent developers. It is funny. I'll say, to the original point, so many people, I keep bumping into people in Ottawa who have heard of or even played Starwall, and they're like, I had no idea that was made in Ottawa. That's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly that is the case. Very few people know about the things that are going on. So, I mean, my overall picture of the industry is kind of that it's been a bit touch and go. There have been some bigger shops that existed for a while, did really well, and then sort of in cycles things implode a little bit. So I'm really excited and optimistic about the stuff Snowden's trying to do with the growth right now, the support of a big international company, the stable core of the business being the service work model. But yeah, there's a lot. I feel like a lot of people who want to at least do AAA development wind up leaving the city, and that is really sad to me. It's too bad that there isn't a few big stable anchor companies that would kind of cement the industry, keep other things, and then you get smaller people, teams break off. You get the SkyPyres and BreakFalls and Steel Crates, from those companies. You would have a lot more of that. So that's my kind of lament of where we're at a little bit.
Absolutely. And I definitely can echo that experience. Like Star Wars was one of our go-to party games for a really long time. Every party we'd have Star Wars up running, and it wasn't until well after that that I was like, wait, I think I've met those people.
Yeah.
Wait, what's going on here? So absolutely, yeah, like getting a little bit more out there and just seeing the stuff, which I guess I could also point towards the lovely folks at Ottawa Games getting some of that word out there. So you know what, I'm gonna send this one over to Matt and see what would you say on this topic. Like, how can people get involved? Where do you see the current state of the local industry?
So I only started in the gaming industry and then by extension the Ottawa gaming industry in 2016 as SkyPyre was being formed and we were finishing up school. And I decided to go again to the marketing of it. So I was like, okay, let's get a Twitter account because that's what you do, right? I had no idea what to do, and it's all self-taught. And I was just like, okay, let's figure it out. And from there, then you figure out, oh, there's these guys and dirty rectangles and stuff like that. So yeah, dirty rectangles is a really good place to just start. If you don't know anyone, it's a super welcoming place, and really that's a welcoming place and tight-knit group. That would be the Ottawa industry in a nutshell, in a sentence. But if there was one spot that's fairly consistently recurring every week, once a month.
Every month. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Before times, I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
At once a month is Dirty Rectangles. They're very open. They're very open. They're very welcoming. It's a lot of fun, and really, especially if you're a new person, just go and, well, at least in the before times, it was at the bar, and you would just go sit on a couch. Just go sit next to someone and say, "Hi, I'm so and so," and then they'd go, "Oh, what do you do?" I do this. What do you do? And from there, it's just like, boom, you're in it. You're just like that. You're in the industry, so to speak, at least in Ottawa. And it's super awesome. And you get to see what other people are doing. And you mentioned Ottawa Games. That's another initiative that I am a part of doing. Basically, we're trying to create a sort of quote unquote hub, basically, for all resources and industry members to be showcased, basically. So we have a website. We're trying to show all developers and studios and stuff and just see who's around. But then also, if you're trying to join in this industry, we have these resources of the major schools. So post-grad schools, we have those listed because they have lots of good programs. Like Nick and I, we attended IMD, right, in Carleton. But then also just any events, so things like LameJam or Dirty Rectangles. We want all that kind of stuff to be encompassed in one spot so that people can just look it up and be like, oh, look at the things that are happening. I don't have to move away to Montreal or don't have to move to Toronto. It does exist here. It's just, for some reason, not as well known. And that's what we're trying to do, is make it well known and make it discoverable.
I guess, should we briefly, just for the folks who might not know, should we describe Dirty Rectangles and kind of what goes on there? Just really quick, if anybody wants to take that one on, what is Dirty Rectangles for people who are interested in maybe showing up to the next one? Matt, do you want to take that?
Yeah, Dirty Rectangles is it's not a strict, this is an event and we only do this and whatever, and it's like deadlines, and it's nothing like that, right? It's not a typical convention or anything like that. It's very chill. It's very relaxed. People just show up. And as I said, in the before times, it was being held in a bar that they have good standing with, and you just show up one night and you just hang out, order a couple of drinks, have a bit of food, and people who have something to show that they're working on do so. They have a projector set up. You just plug in your laptop, and for the next 20 minutes, here's what I've been working on. Any questions? Cool. Next, and that's it. And there might be one person, there might be 10 people presenting that day. And it's really just come and hang out with everyone, with these other people who are part of this industry that you might not know, or that you do know, and just come hang out with friends. That's how awesome it is. It's just come hang out.
I know, I mean, from my experiences, I was a little bit intimidated when I heard about rectangles. I thought, oh, wow, there's so many cool people here. Like, can I really show up and be? And it was just such a welcoming and fantastic, relaxed group of people. Like, I can't say enough good things about just how great everyone was. And I think someone could correct me. It's the third Wednesday of every month. And I think it's the third Wednesday. And yeah, okay, we got thumbs up on that. So third Wednesday of every month. It's currently running online because of the in-person restrictions, but even more accessible to jump in, I guess, now. So definitely,
they do fun streams. Yeah.
Yeah, like definitely get involved with that. Nick, where do you see the current kind of state of Ottawa? Do you have anything to add on to these ones?
I largely agree with what these two guys have said. I mean, it's one of those tragic things in that there's a lot of potential, because there's a lot of great post-secondary that produces a lot of excellent designers. There's a lot of great indies, but inevitably when someone wants to take the plunge and dive in, they tend to go either where the AAAs are, which is in Canada, at least it's the big three: Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, with a lesser stake in Edmonton, I suppose. Or they go the indie route, but they still have to go where publishers or investment is, which is still within the big three. But I do have an optimistic take, which is that never before, we've talked about the before times, and I definitely miss the before times more than ever. Don't take this as a I'm happy about this, but never before has there been a better opportunity to get remote work with these bigger studios. So what I see as a possible future, right, is you always see the story. Someone gets into an industry, they work in a big AAA company for a bit, they go up a rank or two, and then they decide, nah, this isn't for me. I want to kind of do my own thing, and then they grab a few people and they start a company. Now you have the opportunity for somebody in Ottawa to be like, I'm going to work for a big company based out of Montreal, and they do that remotely almost entirely, right? A lot of positions are now available for remote work, and they'll do that for a bit. And then when they go, I want to start a company, they're like, all my friends live in Ottawa, all my family lives in Ottawa, so I'm going to stay here and I'm going to start it here. And that's my hope, is that we start to decouple these big centralized hubs, both for the AAA work and for the indies that are looking for sponsorship and financial support. And they were able to build industry where we want industry to be built. I mean, that was the crux of SkyPyre, is most of us didn't want to move to do this kind of work. I mean, we're a very pragmatic company. For those that don't know, we don't do SkyPyre full time. It is all of our side hustle. So we all have our day jobs that keep the lights on, and that allows us to enjoy the work we're doing as opposed to panicking about it, for the time being, at least. Ask me in a month when we're like trying to prep EM for launch or something. But it allows us to do that. And then we were like, okay, well, how are we going to do games here? Well, we'll make our own company. So we did, right? And I look forward to a future where more and more people are able to do that from one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great insight. And I never really thought much about that point of that's how most of these small indie studios are getting started, is this kind of breakaway from AAA or working on these different projects. And yeah, I know more and more people in Ottawa who are doing that kind of work exactly. And we've already seen a lot of people from Rectangles who had to move away to Toronto and Montreal and all of these different places over time. And it's such a shame to see them. But kind of now looking back at that, it's easy to see that those people would still be here, and we might be able to get more and more of that over as this way of doing things becomes more normal. So yeah, that's, that added a little bit more optimism to me for the future of this industry. And I've already got quite a bit there. So that's really great to hear. All right. I think, Forrest, if you want to give us some closing notes.
Absolutely. So just as we approach the end here, a few questions I want to just quickly go over. So first, nice and short one. Outside of the other panelists' works, what are some of your favorite projects to come out of Ottawa? And so I think since we're like we know the community a little bit better, I think we all might have our own favorites. And so, Mike, I'll start with you. What's your favorite project to come out of Ottawa?
Favorite project coming out? I mean, maybe it's on the tip of my tongue. Definitely had a few good rounds of Keep Talking, Nobody Explodes. I mentioned our friends at Steel Crate. That's definitely one of them. Yeah. Throw that out there for sure.
Sounds good. And Nick, how about you?
I mean, he stole my Go. That was one of the first games that I tried in VR, so that was a pretty awesome experience for me. Giving that a go. It's many of the things that I'm impressed by often aren't the products that you see pushed out. It's stuff like I have the luxury of keeping in contact with some of the professors for the IMD course, and I regularly review student projects there, right? And these are just kids who are trying to figure this stuff out. I was in their shoes not too long ago, and I was freaking out. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I see again year over year just amazing, insightful, interesting projects come out of that, and I'm like, God, I just wish you would take this and run with it. And some do. So it's just it's seeing a lot of that stuff. That is what I find most inspiring. It's more so the potential than what's already been cemented.
Nice. And Matt, how about you?
Well, I mean, Keep Talking is great. It was also my go-to, of course. But it's such a, I don't know if I have a favorite, because it's just everything that I see is awesome. But the rounds that I've played of Starwall are fantastic, and I always have a blast. So I have to give it to BreakFall for creating that masterpiece. Yes. But yeah, it's just, I don't have a favorite, but I love seeing the vast variety of different ideas that are coming out, especially since my involvement in creating Ottawa games. I'm a lot more involved in talking with the other local developers and seeing what they're making, and it's just from a single solo person to a group of 10 or even bigger with Snowed In. It's the variety is insane, and it breaks my heart, and that is why I'm trying to push for it for awareness. But it breaks my heart that no one knows that they exist, and more people should be aware, especially within Ottawa.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I really like these sort of points of it's not what's coming out of Ottawa isn't just the big titles and stuff, but it's also the students and what the community that we build. It's everybody helping one another out to even if people go off to other places and people come into Ottawa, the community pumps up everybody so much. And I think one little thing that this reminded me of, an experience sort of, and I'm not trying to pander to everybody else here, but the release party for Pizza Titan Ultra, I remember that happening at Snowden Studios, and that was such a cool time. Because not only was the game released and it was cool seeing that this game was just shipped, this is happening, but they got pizza for us, which is what better fitting.
They got the dosh if they're buying you pizza, right? That means you made it.
That was a good time.
That was a fun experience for sure. And I think this is just what the core of the community means is building these experiences for people. And so for myself, what I really want to see in the future is what I had the opportunity to experience. I want other students to experience that. I think all of us here want to be able to sort of pay that forward to people. And so, yeah, it's very exciting to hear what sort of everybody's mentality is going forward with the Ottawa community. Yeah, so other than that, just before we wrap it up, I just want to go through and see what types of projects people are working on. If you have anything that's going on right now, and of course, I know this is NDA land and everything like that. But I'll start with Matt. You first. At SkyPyre, what are you all working on?
Well, as we said, Evasive Maneuvers, the global LameJam game that's now becoming an actual full-fledged game, that'll be coming out early 2022. Finally, we'll be finished with that. We finally also this past week actually had the pleasure to announce our game called Relic Bound, which is a reimagining of our first game, as mentioned by Nick, Hail and Ballad of the Blade Thief. That was our game that we made in university. We've reimagined it, and we've been working on it behind the scenes, very hush-hush, since like 2018, 2019. So it's been like 3 years of us wanting to tell everyone, but not saying anything. And along with our recent video announcing our restructuring of our studio mindset, we've decided to be a lot more open with that game. So we're going to be releasing on the Twitter, just what we've been working on for the last 3 years, and we're very excited about that.
Awesome. And I definitely want to mention, like, I saw the video, like you did an Everyone Paying. I checked it out, and I love the video so much, just because I come from like an open source game development background, and so for myself, seeing development open to the public and like sharing as much as you can, I'm super excited for this, and so definitely an awesome direction to go. And Nick, is there anything else you want to add on terms of SkyPyre?
No, I think Matt pretty well covered it. The only other thing I would share is with that new open framework that we're talking about. One of the main reasons we did it, besides just improving our morale as developers, as indies, as part-times, is allowing people to experiment. And like that's ultimately, like, we're talking all about this LameJam's mentality is experimentation, right? It's grabbing 3 bullet points and being like, I'm making a game out of this, right? So it's I'm hoping that this new kind of fresher take will allow people to experiment with different mechanics, different ideas, different worlds, different genres entirely. Like, it's already spawned a number of genres in game testing, like within the studio, that we have never even thought to touch with a 10-foot pole. So it's like wow, we're already experimenting. So like I'm looking forward to seeing like what some of the stuff that crops out of there is. There's nothing to share because I don't know what it is yet, but it's something to keep an eye out for sure. I know I have ideas.
Awesome. And Mike, how about you? What kind of stuff you have upcoming?
Oh yeah, I mean, so BreakFall right now, we're not actively working on anything. We sort of wound down full-time development with a bunch of prototypes kind of in progress. So we still meet once in a while and talk about like, well, what else could we do? What should we be working on, if anything? I personally have some outstanding audio for a couple of cool little indie projects. Little Metroidvania, Escape Shadow Dungeon, I think is the official name still. It's been parked for a while with Dave St. Louis from Bitheads and another one of our friends from the Netherlands, Scissor Marks. But yeah, that one forthcoming. And then one of my other fellow snowed in, someone I've worked with at a few different companies is a sort of secret prototype, but it's also very, very impressive what he's put together in Unity. I mean, the tools have never been better to just make a prototype of a crazy thing. So he's got this whole like Battlefield-esque kind of like with robots, capture command points, first-person shooter thing, and it looks really, really good. I don't know, and I honestly don't even know if these things will ever see the light of day. Like, will we ever even finish? Who knows? But they're really fun to work on. So it's like I am in awe in recent years just how good the tools are and how you can just grab a few friends and realize. And game jams are a great place to just explore some of the wackier ideas. But even so, just as a hobbyist, like, you've never had the opportunity to just like, yeah, I'm going to make a game. I'm going to make that game. So yeah, I honestly don't know what'll happen in the next few years, which is very, very exciting because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and Ottawa is just such a great community. Like it really is. Like we sort of talk to dirty rectangles, but in an industry that is known to be plagued with certain problems, I also have worked at quite a few Ottawa companies where I really haven't encountered, like, the majority of companies and people I've worked with have just been absolutely phenomenal. So this is part of why I hope it grows, and I want to see more sane, fun, awesome game development with the people in this community. So.
Nice, great to hear. Yeah, I think that's an awesome note to end it off on. Just quickly, all three of you again, where can we find you online, whether it be website, Twitter, what kind of stuff? So Mike, we'll start with you.
Oh yeah, I sometimes still there is the BreakFall Twitter up there. I'm also at Mike O'Keogh, Keogh, on Twitter. I'm on and off the social media depending on my mood in that week, but yeah, you can reach out there.
Awesome. And Nick, how about yourself?
I don't have many socials, but you can find me on. I mean, there's the SkyPyre website, skypyre.com, and any of the following socials that Matt knows by heart, and he will tell you. But myself, largely youtube.com/Nick Burns, as well as artstation.com/Nick Burns Co.
Awesome. And then Matt, for you, holder of all of the social media numbers.
I have it all. No, yeah. So personally, you can find me on Twitter at Mathieu C O'Brien, and then yeah, as Nick said, SkyPyre.com, and from there you can pretty much connect to all of our socials. But just to make it simple, at SkyPyre is generally the preferred tag on Twitter, Instagram, that sort of stuff. And then, of course, also at Ottawa Games on Twitter. Check it out and just see who else is out there. And if there is anyone else that's missing, please contact us, or anything else you'd like to see on the website, contact us. We want to add it all on there.
Perfect. And right before we end it off, Nick, is there something else you want to mention?
Okay. I was going to build off of something that Mike said, but I suppose it makes sense in isolation anyways, which is just maybe a parting word for any budding game developers or students who want to get into it here in Ottawa, is to just make stuff. Mike made a great point. The tools have never been better, right? Like, it has never been easier to jumpstart into just making games, even mods. Like, getting in and making mods for your favorite games is a great way to get into it, because the only way we're going to grow this industry here is by having the talent be here, and there is a bit of legwork to do in that we just need people to stick around, build the skill, invest here in the talent pool here, and then we'll hopefully build it up from there. And I have a lot of faith that we can definitely do that.
Awesome. Yes, I think that's a very good aspirational finish for what we can do in the future, maybe. So thank you so much to all of the panelists for being here. This was a really great discussion, and I think especially being able to see into the lens of the interior of the Ottawa community is really great. So we will be back in just a few minutes with the LameJam closing, so stick around for that. We'll check out a few games. We'll close everything off, and hopefully we can have another panel like this at the next event that the LameJam runs. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks everybody.
So much.